Hey all, Joe here with All Funnies and Games, and today we're coming back to Kitty Pet's 30-Day Art Challenge. Now, the next day, as I'd been going through, was to draw a comic. I've started doing speed paints of all my Sunday webcomics on the channel, so I'm going to call that one satisfied. The next one on her list, though, is Favorite Fairy Tale. And I'm going to remember this fairy tale as best as I can, and I'm going to tell it to you. So there was a king with 1 daughter and 7 sons. And this king was a widower. His wife had died, the old queen, whose children these all were. And so the king married a new queen. And this, as most fairy tales go, turned out to be an evil stepmother. And she cursed the 7 boys. And they all ended up living in a tower turned into swans. And this queen had a magical spool of yarn that she could throw down at her feet, and it would lead away to the tower where she could check and make sure that her prisoners were still there. And she did this for 5 years, I think it was. For 5 years, she kept these boys in this tower, and then as she started to think it's fine, the curse is over with, she got less careful with things. And the boy's sister, who was still at home, who the king had been able to protect, she found the spool of yarn. And from their castle, she threw down the yarn, and it unspooled, and it led her the long and winding way to the tower, where her brothers were trapped. And she was so saddened to see that they had all been turned into swans by this curse. And she thought, what can I do to fix this? And it was at that moment, as is so common in these tales, that the fairy arrived. And the fairy told her the secret. She had to take this magical spool of yarn that would never run out, and she had to make magical sweaters. Now, from the time the curse began, she only had 7 years to knit these magical sweaters. And, as I said, it had already been 5. She had 2 years left to knit these 7 magical sweaters. And if her stepmother, the queen, caught her at it, this was going to be a very, very terrible situation. The queen would immediately figure out what it was that the young princess was doing. And so she had to make them in secret. And so she worked and worked on these sweaters, and finally, on the eve before the final night, she was able to come out to the tower with almost all of the sweaters. You see, she hadn't quite had time having to do this in secret the way she did. And so one of her brothers was turned back into a human, wearing his magical sweater, except she hadn't finished one of the arms. And so while 6 of the brothers all turned back into people, this one would for the rest of his life be a young man with a swan wing for an arm. But hey, it's better than nothing. Still happy and still grateful for everything his sister had done to save him from the horrible fate of being trapped a swan forever. And I don't really know if there was a moral to the story in this one. I've never found one. Maybe it's about working hard and meeting deadlines. That's the best guess I can give at it. And I think the reason I like this one so much is I haven't seen a movie of it before. Every other one was well-trodden ground, and I found this one at an age when I was feeling contrary and wanted to be very, very different. So here it is. My favorite fairy tale. It's an odd little story, but there's something interesting here, and there's something I like in this story. Hopefully, you've enjoyed the story too. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next video.